On this episode, we interview filmmaker James Newman about his new documentary on Bangkok.
So if you want to hear how a filmmaker tries to define a complex topic like Bangkok itself, you'll love this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001, got addicted to those little pine nuts they put in the sauce for mango and sticky rice, and has been chasing the yellow dragon ever since.
That is pretty damn specific, man.
I love those things. I crunch them all.
And I met Kenneth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 24 years ago. Fell in love with taxi drivers smiling when I tell them I'm American, but looking dumbfounded when I tell them I'm from Ohio. So I never left.
Well, see, they're dumbfounded because they don't know where that is. But when you tell someone who does know where it is, they're dumbfounded because they're like, why do you live there?
I don't anymore. That's the thing, I left. No, it's always, when I say I'm American, they always say like New York. Like really, they're really excited to say New York. And then I go, Ohio. And then they just look confused. They don't even know if I'm speaking Japanese or what I just said.
Well, at least you live in America, where I'm just like either Vancouver, no. Toronto, no. I come from a place called Alberta. Like, what?
Well, that's what I say when people say they're from Alberta.
That's funny.
All right, I want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted about Greg's ultimately successful chess birthday cake for his son and what it taught him about the impermanence of life, a discussion about the terrible methanol poisonings in Laos and what it says about the drinking and trust culture with young kids traveling in Asia, which I think we've all done ourselves, and some fun experiments with an AI program that analyzes photos to see what it can extrapolate from some pictures of Bangkok. To learn how to become a patron and get all this good stuff, plus full access to over 700 bonus and regular back episodes, click the support button at the top of our website.
That's right. And as always, if you have a comment, a show idea, or just want to say hi, head to BangkokPodcast.com and click the little microphone button on the bottom right. Leave us a voicemail. We'll play it on the show. Alrighty then. Well, on this episode, we chat with a young fella by the name of James Newman, who is an author and filmmaker, and who has just released a documentary on Bangkok titled Bangkok, City of Angels. I watched it the other night, and it's a really interesting look at the city with some great interviews with noted locals and expats who are trying to define what gives the city its famous chaotic appeal. So I thought it'd be fun to sit down with James to talk about how exactly one even begins to try to encapsulate a city as complex as Bangkok in a single film, what elements he focused on when making the film, and what surprised him, and how his impressions of the place have changed after spending several years focusing on what makes the city tick. So here is my chat with our pal, James Newman. All right, well, we are talking with a young fella by the name of James Newman, a filmmaker, an all-around creative kind of guy behind the video camera, in front of the video camera maybe. I'm not sure yet, but we'll get into that. James, welcome to the Bangkok Podcast.
Hello, and thanks for having me. Great to be on the show. I've been listening to it over the years, and for you guys, it's been over 10 years, right?
Geez, yes.
2013.
Yeah, we started in 2000,
I think was the first
2010, one. And then we quit in 2013, and then we started again in 2016. So we've got about 700 episodes under our belt, which is insane.
Yeah, that takes a lot of commitment and a lot of keeping to a schedule, and it's really commendable.
Yeah, well, it's
to keep going for so long.
It's bridging on insanity sometimes, but it is what it is. But we've both been creative. I'm doing the podcast, and you are a filmmaker, and among other things. But you're on the show this week to talk about a documentary that you made called Bangkok, City of Angels. And I watched through it earlier today. Actually, I watched half of it a few days ago, and I watched the rest of it today. Sorry, I'm a bit busy this week, but it's really good and it's really interesting. And I wanted to talk to you about about the creative process, and especially about when you tackle a subject like Bangkok, because it's famously chaotic, hard to pin down, hard to define. And I want to talk a bit about how you capture that in a documentary. But first, you're a filmmaker. You're from the UK. It's about all I know about you. Tell us more. Where are you from, and why you're here, and what do you do?
Yeah, that's right. I was born in London, um, and I moved to, well. Okay, let's go way back. I was born in London, and I graduated, worked in the city of London in the finance
Mhm.
sector as a insurance broker for Lloyd's of London, from my early 20s to about 24, 25. And then I arrived in Thailand for the first time
Wow.
in 2001, around about the same time as you
Oh,
guys.
okay. Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't start making films until relatively recently. Before that, I was writing novels and fiction and short stories, publishing them in little e-zines and magazines and what have you. There was a little explosion around that time in electronic media, so I kind of hopped
Oh,
on
yeah.
that, and then I wrote a crime detective series. You know, lots of people were doing it back then. You had Christopher Moore's Calvino series, and you had some really good books by Timothy Hallinan and Stephen Lever
Right, right.
and Jake Needham. It was quite, it was quite fashionable to have this white privileged male detective um, solving crimes in a hot metropolis such as
Yeah.
Bangkok. Um, and it wasn't until 2017 I produced my first short film with a reasonable budget. I made a film called Crazy Medicine with a guy called Matt Carroll, who was the writer and also the financier of that picture.
Okay.
And I hooked up with Richie Moore, who is like Bangkok or Thailand sort of go-to Hollywood um, film director.
I know Richie well.
Um,
He's an old friend of mine. One of the craziest, coolest guys I've ever met. Yeah,
yeah, he's a good close
yeah.
friend. He was living here in the house with me for
Oh,
a
yeah.
while. And then the same guy who wrote and financed the Crazy Medicine, which I did with Richie, approached me to do a documentary, which became Bangkok City of Angels. So he had a kind of rough idea of what he wanted to do. This was a film that kind of generalized. It was a general kind of overview of Bangkok with a no particular kind of focus on. We could have chosen food, we could have chosen travel, we could have chosen religion or culture. Um, Instead, we kind of gave a representation of Bangkok through the lens mostly of an expat
Right,
or an
right.
outsider to give it some level of objectivity, I guess. Some of the best historians often outsiders. So we had a brief kind of narrative of a few pages. The main kind of aim of the film was to give people more of an idea, more knowledge on the city that they would ordinarily have through watching, YouTube videos or perhaps reading guidebooks or listening to the guy sat next to you on the bar stool
Ugh.
of the expat watering hole. So we
Yeah,
went a
right.
bit more in depth with that. So my job was really to reach out to my contacts and find people who I felt were knowledgeable about the city. So we spoke to Narissa, the historian
Yeah, yeah.
who owns River Books, who was really good at taking us right back to before Bangkok was Bangkok. It was a kind of small trading post, wasn't it, really? A small town on the other side of the river. And the big change came when it moved across from Thonburi, where what Aron is now,
Sure. Yeah.
to the other side of the banks of the river, where modern Bangkok was founded in, I want to say, 1782.
Mm.
Um, and the development of the city from that period. And I decided in my mind to kind of bookmark it between two medical disasters, two pandemics, one being the cholera outbreak in 1820, when the victims of the cholera epidemic were left on the temple, on Watsaket Temple,
Right.
to be eaten by the red-headed vultures, who, in a form of sky burial. The vultures are no longer with us, but COVID was when I started making the film. So I thought I'd bookmark it between 2020 COVID and 1820 cholera, and all the developments and challenges and conflicts and all the adventures that happened in
Right.
between.
That's a really interesting way to bookmark it, because I mean, you said 1820 was the cholera outbreak. So
Right.
basically 100 years, right? And man, what a change Bangkok has gone through in that 100 years. And for those that don't know, I mean,
200.
1890. Oh yeah, geez, wow, my math is bad. 200 years. Got a few listeners out there I know who are screaming right now, but anyway, yeah. But it's to think of what things were like back then, and like I was doing a little bit of research down on Mahachai Road, which runs along the old Bangkok Wall, and just on the other side of that is Wat Saket, the Golden Mount, and that's where they used to put all of the victims of cholera, which would be eaten by the vultures, and you cover that in your documentary with some pretty interesting footage. And they have the famous doors down there called Pratupi, which where they, the ghost doors, where they used to take the bodies through and dump them over there to get eaten. So it's amazing to think that you can bookmark a documentary with these two global pandemics that both sort of played a huge role in how Bangkok suffered and shrank and then bounced back. And I like at the end of it, I'm not going to spoil or anything, but I like how at the end of it, you sort of talk about the resiliency of the city and the culture of the Thais and the nature of the Thai people, and how it's sort of on track to remain Teflon Thailand, as we say. So that's a really interesting way to bookmark it between those two diseases.
Yeah, I felt so. And coming at it from a kind of, I don't know, through the toolkit of a storyteller, we want to have conflict. We want to have person in a place with a problem. So instead of the person, we take the city. So the city is a person, and it begins with a conflict which they overcome, and it ends with a conflict which we've pretty much overcome, haven't we? It was a bit.
Fingers crossed.
It was. It was strange. It was strange filming it during COVID, because we really did have the streets to ourselves for a while
Right.
there. We were filming right in the middle of the pandemic.
So as I was watching, I just sort of typed a couple of quick notes about, it starts with the cholera thing. Well, it actually starts with sort of the sacking of Ayutthaya and how Bangkok was formed. And it touches on the cholera, and then sort of in the late 1800s, early 1900s, how King Chulalongkorn brought back a lot of Western influences, and then it talks about the colonization. Heads into the Vietnam World War I, World War II, Vietnam War, GIs coming over to Bangkok, marijuana, pat pong, hard drugs. It touches on the lack of social safety nets that Bangkok, the Thai people, don't have access to, and some of the rough living that people are forced to do, right through to the financial crash in 1997. There's a great bit on Check-in 99 with Chris Caddo-Smith, who I also know, and so it touches on so many iconic turning points and locations that are historical and played such a role in inspiring the soul of the people and the soul of the city. And a lot of them are gone now. Check-in 99 is not there anymore, even though I had my bachelor party there. How did you sort of decide on what to focus on and what to leave out? Because as much as it covers, there's still a ton that is not in there.
It's interesting you mentioned the Check-in 99, because I think the kind of seed of the film started out of an idea to have a documentary about the Check-in 99.
Oh, really?
I was a patron there from, I guess, around about 10 years ago. I did an author's night called the Night of Noir there, where lots of crime novelists came, and we gave readings, and we sold books, and it was Chris Cato was so supportive of the arts in the
Right.
area, and a legend himself, a really interesting character. So he was the first guy we interviewed, I think.
Okay.
And it's interesting you talk about the kind of nostalgia attached to some of these old places as well. And we were really sad to see the check-in go, and other places like, I think I mentioned that legendary tunnel behind the check-in
Yeah.
leading from Soi 5 down to 7 back in the day. I remember walking down there. There was, some bearded guy stroking a lop-eared rabbit, just sitting watching Are we allowed to say midget or should we say dwarf? I don't know which is politically correct. Should we say little
We'll just say
person?
all three so we cover the
Okay.
bases.
Should we just offend everyone? That'd be best, wouldn't it? This little person singing karaoke atop of a table, and it was like a scene from a David Lynch movie, a Lynchian scene in the tunnel.
Right.
Those places are no longer with us, but I really enjoy sort of modern day Bangkok as well. I think your relationship with a city is like your relationship with a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a wife, or a husband. You like them as they change and they grow, and they become in many ways a better person.
Right. I heard something recently that stuck with me, and it says that it said the tragedy of marriage is that a woman wants the man to change, but he stays the same, and the man wants the woman to stay the same, but she changes. And and it's funny because there's you're right, with a relationship with a city. There's a lot of people who have been around, old fogies like you and I, who sort of wistfully look back, you should have seen it 20 years ago. It had some real energy. So your love and appreciation of a city is sort of stuck in time, but we also love how it changes and becomes, Bangkok has become much more modern and much more cosmopolitan and much more international, and there's a lot to love there too. So the film does a really good job of straddling these two things, like looking back at these old things that once were. I mean, if you're talking about 100 years ago, those are obviously gone, but more recent history, it looks very fondly at those. But at the end, it sort of talks about the revival after the 97 crash and coming into the 21st century with new technology and things like that, and then got knocked down by COVID, but then it's coming back again. So it's an interesting thing to think about your relationship with Bangkok, because there's a lot to love with what used to be, but there's also a lot to love with what is and what's going to be.
I think it might be a Chinese saying. I might have just pulled this out of my arse. I don't know. But is there a saying that in disaster is opportunity? Disaster, there's opportunity for someone, right? And the Thais are very good at taking hold of opportunities.
A word that came up several times as I was watching the film was the word pragmatic. And we've said that on the podcast a lot too. Thais are very pragmatic. So, in the film, like I said, you cover all these terrible things, the highs and the lows, but through it all, the Thais are like, hey, sabai, do what we need to do and get on with it. And that's a theme running through all of the things that you cover in the documentary, like whether it's good or bad, the good stuff, there's people that are sitting outside of that, the effect of that good stuff, and the bad stuff, there's people that are sitting outside of the effect of that. But, I don't really know what I'm saying here, but Thais are, no matter what is thrown at them, good or bad, they always seem to remain very even keeled and very level headed.
I think it's quite an optimistic picture, and the film's quite optimistic. And we can dwell on the terrible effects of, say, the sex industry or slavery, or there's some awful things going on. Let's not forget that. But the aim of the picture, I think, was to focus on how the city has been resilient and how it has overcome the major obstacles that it's had to face.
And how long did it take you to film it? You said you talked to Chris Cato-Smith at Check-In 99, and in the film, it looks like he's in the Check-In 99. So you must have filmed that a long time ago. So how long have you been working on this?
From when the interview started, I guess was 2020 or 2021.
Okay.
And then the final interview was probably 2023.
All right.
And then it was released finally this year. So probably 4 years from conception to delivery, which I guess is about normal for a documentary. I wouldn't want to do one in less than a year. and certainly not one with as wide a topic as this one. I mean, documentaries, they evolve and they grow. It's not like if you're doing a narrative film where you have a script and you just have to deliver the script.
Right.
When you go into doing a documentary, you have really an idea, and then you speak to people and they will say something which leads you in another direction.
Yeah.
And then you have to loop back and go somewhere else and find footage to cover it.
Right.
So it's really...
And, George Lucas one time said, he said, a film is never finished, it's abandoned. And I think that that's especially applicable to a documentary, and especially applicable to a documentary about Bangkok, because there's always another interview, there's always a new expat, there's always a new story or a new twist you can go to. So when you finished it and when you sort of locked the picture, did you feel like, oh, there's so much I missed, or, the next day something major happened, you're like, God damn it, I wish I would have got that in there,
No, it because it covered such a broad timeline, we couldn't have got everything.
Yeah.
And we were bound to miss out things. And what we did do, which I'd encourage all filmmakers to do, is once we shot it and we kind of locked it, we did a test screening, and then we did another test screening, and we did another test screening. So we got a bunch of people together who watched the film and gave us feedback, and then we went back and edited it. And
nerve-wracking process sitting with an audience in front of it. Eh?
Well, no, not if you're egotistical like me, Greg.
That's good. I'm cloaked in a protective layer of ego. There's a lot of really great footage in it too, from way back in the day, monks, and especially like the footage of the major flood that happened. I believe it was in the 1940s, when there was knee-deep water all through Rattanakosin Island. Where did you find that stuff, and how did you dig it up?
Well, my go-to guy for most of the archive stuff, not all of it, but a majority of it, was Mr. Pat McKay, otherwise known as Bangkok Pat.
Friend of the show, former guest on the Bangkok podcast.
Has he been on the show as well?
Yeah, lovely guy.
Yeah, a friend. And but anyway, I sat down with him and said, have you got footage you can use, and who owns it? Can we get the rights to it, and how to have the rights being distributed? And so he was my main archive guy. Some of the other stuff I bought, some of it I found, borrowed, and some of it I shot. So a lot of the footage I kind of shot and made it look old and stuff.
Okay, all right.
So some of the footage we used was from an adult entertainment movie called Hot Sex.
Oh, really?
Shot in the 1970s. But the scenes between the sex scenes were actually
the real juicy plot.
Yeah, I mean the establishing shots were actually really nice.
Oh, that's so funny.
All that stuff in Pat Pong where he's pulling the lens and we're focusing on the lights and pulling out. That was all transitional establishing camera footage of a sex film.
So,
and for some reason, no one's claiming the authorship of that or copyright of that. So as far as we can see, it's fair game.
Yeah, that's when you get to watch a porno at home and legitimately say, I'm doing research. Come on.
Oh, yeah.
That's so funny. Has your, speaking of relationships with Bangkok, has your relationship with Bangkok changed after doing this? Like, you've been here as long as I have, and 23 years, you develop a definite connection with the city, especially, I can't put words in your mouth, but for me, like, I really love it. It's obvious from what we do, but has it left you with a sense of sort of nostalgia or wistfulness, or are you optimistic about the future, seeing such a wide space of time captured in a single movie? What's your takeaway from it? How do you feel about how things are in the city?
I can't project into the future too much. Part of me sees it going the same way as like a Singapore or one of the Hong Kong. I do think it's the center of Southeast Asia. Will it be sanitized? Will it become less chaotic? I doubt it. I'm not bothered which way it grows, really. I will live and adapt to the city rather than it live and adapt to me.
Did you experience any pushback with this stuff? I mean, I know I don't know how it works for documentaries, but I know if you shoot a film in Thailand, you've got to have someone, a representative from the Thai film office there, and they have to approve the script and stuff like that. When you're shooting a documentary, especially one bookmarked by, these iconic outbreaks, the negative parts of life in Bangkok, did you have any pushback from the authorities or the Thai Film Board or anything like that?
Yeah, I think documentaries come under a different category, don't they? To
You'd
feature
hope so,
films.
yeah.
Feature films, you need to have permission from the tourist board. So if you want to shoot a feature film, you need to submit your script. You need to have a script supervisor and someone who's with you on set each
Right.
day. But documentaries, I believe, fall under the same category as like music videos or commercials. So
Yeah, I don't think documentary films have the same stringent controls that narrative features do. So
yeah, and I wasn't traipsing around town with a crew,
yeah,
like you have to do with feature
yeah.
films. So
No, it's great. I also want to mention another film that you brought up real quickly in our previous conversation called I Am Joseph. And I didn't have a chance to watch the whole thing yet. I skimmed a few minutes of it, but it looks really interesting. And it's another part of Bangkok that makes Bangkok Bangkok. Is it basically profiles a very eccentric dude living here? Can you talk a little bit about that too?
yeah, so I Am Joseph is a character documentary. So it focuses on one
Hmm.
person rather than one city. And he is a guy who a friend suggested that I contact. I have a YouTube channel called Strange TV, and I'm into strange stuff. So um, this guy is indeed very strange. He dresses as Santa Claus. He has a white beard and he wears a red
Yeah.
hat. It's a festive season, so this is his time of year. And he goes around with this book, which he'll tell you it's not a Bible, it's just a blank notebook. And he will approach you in the street and ask you to write down a message or a positive message about humanity. And that's what he does. He goes from person to person all around the kind of tourist areas of Bangkok, asking for these signatures, which he records in his book. So I met him, I followed him around. We went around Khao San Road, and what he also does, he has social media. So he does Twitter and he does Instagram, and he shoots videos of himself talking to the camera, which I had free access to. So I kind of made the video from interviews I'd done and from his own stuff. And the first line of the film, which is killer, it's him looking directly into the camera. He says, "I came to Thailand to kill myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I came to Thailand to kill myself because I wasn't a good person."
Yeah. It's
Boom. That's a great opening line.
not to mention his thick Irish accent makes it a bit more lyrical.
All American accent. As I was shooting with him, a big secret was revealed, which I can't really give away because we're screening the film at the moment. Actually, we're showing it on the 15th of December with the Bangkok City of Angels. We're doing a double feature, and that's at the Charoen Krung Prince Heritage Theatre.
Oh, I love that place.
It's a great place, right?
Yeah.
It's like got like a 700-inch screen or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. I really want to see if I can take my PlayStation 5 down there and set it up on this. It's
Yeah, dude.
neither here nor there. Yeah, well, it's really interesting, and it reminded me. I don't know if you've seen another short documentary that's on YouTube. It's called Mystery Mind Maps by a guy named Rafael Treza. No idea who he is, but it's about that guy who goes around scribbling those weird cryptic drawings on the sidewalk all over Bangkok. Kun Pichai.
Yeah, Pichai.
Yeah.
And I've got another short, not really a documentary, it's an interview. So I got to speak to him in my broken Thai, and he doesn't speak any English. But yeah, his story is always the same. He went to he went to Ramkhamhaeng, so he graduated with a degree in engineering, apparently. But then he joined the Navy, and then something happened to his family, and like each member of his family was killed, and now he's on this kind of mission of redemption to uncover this vast conspiracy within the city of Bangkok. And it's fascinating stuff. I'm sure he's got a secret. I'm sure he has something to tell the world, and there's some kind of cryptic puzzle that needs unlocking within those mind maps.
Yeah, it's a bit of a sad story. I think those events kind of broke him a little bit, and he sort of went into his own little world. And but it's amazing how many people have seen these things, and now with the exposure on social media, sort of know more about his story.
I think if he was operating or working in New York or London, his work would be selling for millions. I really do. I think the fact that, and he has been exhibited at the BACC, right?
Oh
And
yeah,
he has had his, yeah, but there isn't really a market for it. And I don't think he would be responsive
no,
to any kind of commercial avenue to his
yeah,
message. You know, he is what the French call art brut, right? He's on the street, he's doing it for real, and he has a message. And men like him, and that really make Bangkok colorful and exciting
yeah,
and
like
interesting.
him, like Joseph. Yeah, these
Yeah, dude.
characters. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, man, it's great that you're out there. Giving voice and giving face to these little facets of the city that keep it so vibrant and chaotic and colorful.
it's just so much fun,
Yeah.
isn't it? Really, I mean, yeah, we live in a very exciting city. It's very chaotic. It's exciting. There's interesting people to meet all over the place, and long may it continue.
That's right. That's right. Drink to that. Well, James, let's wrap things up now. But thanks so much for coming on. And this documentary is very worthwhile checking out. And I really love the idea of bookmarking it between cholera and COVID. It's a bit of a dark way to start, but those two events had such a long lasting, deep impact on the culture of the city that it does make sense. So I get it. It's really cool. Where you said it was on Amazon, where can people find it coming up? We're doing this interview at the beginning of December, 2024. So going forward, where can people find the documentary?
Amazon Prime, you can either buy it as a download or you can rent it. I think it might be like $5 to buy, $2 or $3 to rent. Or UK, a little bit more. And that's in UK, USA, Japan, and Germany at the moment. I'm also negotiating other distribution deals as well. So it's out on Amazon at the moment, but should be out on other platforms quite soon. Or contact me. If you contact me and ask nicely, I'll probably give you a link.
And where can people find you on Facebook and your website? What are they?
So Facebook, James Newman, and website is www.jdstrange.com. JD Strange is my nom de plume. That's the name I use to write my fiction. And Twitter, I think, is James Newman BKK. And what else do you have? It's X now, isn't it? And Instagram, I think, is JD Strange 2020.
Nice. Well, keep doing what you do, man. This is really cool, and it's cool that to know that I'm not the only one who's still constantly fascinated by the city and looking for ways to show off its beauty and its mystery and its fun, which is what we do on the podcast and what you do on your films. So hope to see you next time, perhaps hopefully in front of a movie screen with a pint of beer. That would be more.
Or a PlayStation 5.
Either way, as long as the beer is there, I'm not really picky about what I'm watching. Thanks a lot, James. It's great to talk to you.
Cheers, Greg. Thanks so much. Take care.
I really enjoyed that interview. I'm a little bit surprised. I've never run across him, at least when I looked at his photo on Facebook. He didn't look familiar. But he and I have a bunch of mutual friends who are filmmakers. And, of course, a bunch of people he interviewed are people that, at least some of them, are people that we've had on the podcast.
Totally, yeah. It's funny how you meet people like this, right? You're like, how have we never met? We know, like,
that's right, yeah.
50% of the people I know are friends of you as well. And
right.
It doesn't work, but yeah, really nice to sit down with him, chat with him. And, I think, you're a film guy more than I am, but I'm a film lover. And Bangkok is so interesting and so cool and so chaotic. And I think it's certainly crossed my mind before, like, man, that would make a really interesting short film, or like to discuss that or talk to this guy.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, you guys talked about it, obviously, but, what he's trying to do, and I guess this short film was 45 minutes. What he's trying to do in 45 minutes is what the podcast has been trying to do for 12 years.
That's a really good way. I never even thought of that. That's a great way to put it.
You know,
But
you and I have taken 12 years to try to figure out why so many foreigners like Thailand and like Bangkok, and he's trying to squeeze it all into a short film.
yeah, it must. I mean, that's just like so daunting. Like, where do you even start? But I guess you just start with, like you said, you just start with the parts you like and sort of build it up from there. I thought it was really interesting how he bookended it with the cholera outbreak in the 1820s and going right up to COVID in the 2020s. 200 years.
That's right.
Interesting way to sort of force yourself into at least a smaller chunk of time than
Sure.
the full 800 years of war or whatever it is. But
Sure.
yeah, really interesting insights, and good to see some familiar faces on there too. But he could probably do a whole series of them, right? Like, how many parts did he leave out?
No doubt. No doubt.
And at the end of the interview, we also talked about his other little film he's doing called Joseph. And man, it's something he James has a knack for finding, interesting people who have an interesting angle. And you and I have talked before about how a lot of people suggest, oh, I should come on the podcast to talk about this thing, and we're like, well,
Right.
yeah,
Sure.
okay, but that's something everyone has done. But every once in a while, there's a topic or an angle that's just a little bit tweaked a little bit that makes it compelling in a way that's different. And this film he has called I Am Joseph, with this sort of strange, eccentric Irish guy who lives in Bangkok. Something about it, man, it hits me the right way. It looks really, really interesting. I got to make sure to follow that up and check it out.
Now, is the Joseph character essentially homeless?
I don't know. I've only seen the trailer, so I don't know if
Right, his
full
status,
details.
exactly.
Yeah, but I want to learn more, and that's what it's.
So
supposed to
he's
do.
so basically he's a super interesting expat.
Yes, exactly, and that can go this way or that way.
Right, in either direction, right?
Exactly, yeah. But many thanks, James. A very interesting discussion, great film, and keep making them, because we want to keep watching them.
For sure. Thanks, James, and I look forward to meeting you. I'm sure we'll cross paths at some point.
All right, let's get into some Love, Loathe, or Live With, where one of us picks a particular aspect of living in Bangkok, which we discuss to decide if it's something we love about living here, loathe about living here, or have come to accept as something that we just have to learn to live with no matter how we feel about it. And this week, Ed, I'm going to pose a question to you. And I must have done this before, and it's a very simple, silly one, but I saw it the other week when it was raining. What thought crosses your mind when it starts to rain a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit, and you see someone walking down the street with a plastic bag around their head, sort of like sticking up like a Marge Simpson style
Oh, that's great.
head protector?
Well, I am sometimes that guy.
You are.
So it's funny. It's funny when you mentioned this. I thought you were gonna when you started. I thought you were gonna talk about the way the city shuts down or how the taxis won't stop. And I loathe the way the city responds to rain. It's like they act like it's never rained before.
Interesting.
It's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, it's raining, and the whole city, like the city, practically shuts down, and you can't get a taxi, and it's just like, so I loathe.
It's like
But,
the first light dusting of snow in Calgary. Like,
That's right. Oh my God, it's snowing again. No, but the impromptu rain production, I might even go love, just because
Really?
I have to, just because I'm often that person. I hate carrying an umbrella. I know it's the responsible thing to do, but I hate it because I am the person who leaves my umbrellas everywhere. So I just gave up. I just completely gave up on umbrellas. And so I'm often, although your point about the blue, like what I tend to do is grab, honestly, what I'll do if I'm leaving my place and it's either already raining or it's impending, I'll grab a garbage bag and like stuff it in my bag, my shoulder bag. And then I'll just put a garbage bag over my head. I don't care.
That's funny.
I have no, yeah. So I know the blue bag you're talking about, that it is, Marge Simpson is the perfect analog. So I can't say I love the Marge Simpson blue bag towering over your head, but yeah, I mean, as a non-umbrella guy, I certainly can't say I loathe it. I say I'm going to stick with love. It's got some MacGyver to it. You know,
MacGyver. I wouldn't go that far.
I'm an old MacGyver fan, so.
Well, yeah, but he was diffusing dynamite with paperclip and a compass.
I'm going to say impromptu rain, where I'm going to give a thumbs up to that.
Oh, it's funny. That's funny. I'm a live with on this one because I think it's every time I see it, it just sort of reminds me of the time when, we were walking, me and my wife and my son were walking home, and we got a light sprinkle of rain, just like like that,
Right.
It barely touched our heads, and we came inside, and my wife said, "Well, we better take a shower because he got his hair wet." I was like, "What are you
really?
talking about?" So it just reminded, because when it starts to rain just the slightest bit here, people run like it's about to, like a hurricane is about to blow through.
That I loathe. I loathe the way the city reacts to rain.
Yeah,
because it really just kind of shuts down, and it's so frustrating.
But the plastic bag on the head just sort of reminds me of
Right.
how ludicrously frightened people are of a slight raindrop on.
Oh,
their
I
head,
see your point. Yeah.
No.
Okay. From that point of view, I understand what you're saying.
Right.
I don't mind getting wet. So I only use the garbage bag when it's pouring,
Okay.
and I don't want to get soaked. But yeah, okay. I see your angle now. I thought you were making a point about like fashion or how ridiculous it looks.
Well, that too.
But you were kind of making a point more about like, oh, I can't get wet. Almost the same way a lot of Thais, especially Thai women, will block the sun with their hand.
Right. When they're walking across the crosswalk for 9 seconds in the sun.
Yeah. Okay, that's a different topic, but yeah. So I get your point. There's nothing wrong with getting a little bit wet, but I like the DIY nature of it. So I'm gonna stick with my love.
I live with it because it's goofy and it's funny. I can't loathe it, but it just makes me laugh. Come on, you can walk the 25 meters to the end of the street. Anyway,
That's right.
It's funny.
All right. A final thanks to our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
True that. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. Send us a voicemail through our website that we'll feature on the show. Hit me up on Blue Sky at BKK Greg. Thanks for listening, everyone. Take it easy. Merry Christmas coming up. And we'll see you back here next week.
For sure.